Are you still working somewhere?
No, yes, I work, go to my couch and watch TV.
Before we start, guess who I talked to yesterday?
Who? Keith?
No, Robbie.
Oh shit. Dude, he was in one of my classes a couple weeks ago, like doing the virtual lunch. Whatever.
You are watching a master at work.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to our podcast, The Gameplan. Kris, what are some of the news since we last filmed our last episode?
Well, COVID's been tracking again, both in the MLS and NFL. MLS had to postpone a few matches this past week, most notably Chicago and Minneapolis. That game was postponed between those two clubs with a suspected player being tested positive. No information about that player. The Patriots, as of today, October 16th, had another positive test, putting the game in highly doubt for the Monday game. They've had positive tests the past 3 weeks. They've only had one game postponed so far. Moving on to some more NFL news. We had a recent passing. Fred Dean, former 49, passing away due to COVID-related issues. Then we got the news for basketball. Rockets GM Murray is leaving the Rockets. So that's some big news. And then we got a head coach signing with the Clippers with Lou becoming the new head coach following Doc Rivers' departure. He signed a 5-year contract with the Clippers. And now some more playoff baseball news. I'd say we have 2 clinching games potentially. Tampa Bay leads Houston 3-2, and Atlanta leads Los Angeles 3-1.
Thanks, Kris. Tampa Bay and Houston are playing right now. Last time I saw the score, it was 4-1. Is there an updated score right now, Kris?
7-2. So we're most likely seeing a game 7.
Oh yeah,
not like tomorrow.
So today, guys, we are happy to welcome a new guest within our podcast. He is another one of our coworkers that we continuously love having. On our podcast. His personality screams that of a typical surfer bro in California, but his attitude towards sports screams success and winning at all costs. He is a native of Boston, Massachusetts, but moved to California. So he always has that winning mentality in mind when it comes to sports. Please help me welcome Zach Parre.
How's it going, everyone? Good to see you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Zach, for coming on. What have you been doing to keep yourself busy during the pandemic?
Yeah, it's been tough. I think everybody deals with it different ways. I think it's been nice to have some time to step back at times and reflect, have some nice family time, which I've been able to do. But, like everyone else, it's been a struggle actually not being able to work. Had a lot of jobs that were either furloughed or discontinued. So I'm just trying to stay busy. I started a podcast like you guys. Tried to learn the acoustic guitar. That's coming along. I know the chords now. And, just hanging in there like everyone else.
What is the name of your podcast called?
The podcast is called The Bunt That Podcast, and it's about Major League Baseball.
All right, that podcast will be down in the description. What platform do you upload on? Is it?
I will upload on all platforms like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, that kind of stuff.
Can they also find it on Spotify and the podcast app, or?
Yeah, Spotify as well. Yes.
Okay. So those links will be down in the description below. One of the main things that I noticed or kind of realized that kind of when we all worked at Stanford that kind of separated you away from everyone else is that you had to drive 2 hours from where you lived. Remind me where you lived again in Northern California?
I live in Sonoma. It's like an hour and a half away from Palo Alto.
So hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, 3 hours possibly with traffic. What was that experience like having to drive up and down to Stanford? And would you recommend that for someone coming out of state to live in the Bay?
I don't recommend. I never would recommend anything over like an hour commute, but I just recognize Stanford as a university and an organization that I've always wanted to work for, and I do consider myself to have a pretty good work ethic. And I knew once I got that job referral and that first job referral through sports and sports management after I was in the USF program that I had to jump on it, and it was definitely a challenge at first. It's definitely an adjustment, like you said, with the traffic and trying to figure out. When to leave. And it's definitely a sacrifice of your time. So it's not for everyone, but for me, it was 100% worth it.
That's perfect, actually. For Kris, do you remember meeting Zach for the first time? I think it was during football setup. Was it?
I believe he started during football setup.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly what shift he worked, but
Did you come in like after our initial like first meeting? Like, did you have your own one-on-one meeting with Tyler?
I was there for orientation actually, but then uh, Ian hired me and then Ian left right after that.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like somewhere in like August of last year.
I see.
Yeah.
The reason I ask is me and you have a relationship mostly based on basketball. You went to the University of Gonzaga. Um, describe your relationship with Kris first as a friend.
So with Kris as a friend, I feel like we've always been close. We've had a lot of similarities. Obviously, me and him both go to USF, and I think me, you, and Kris, all of us together are pretty like-minded in that we work hard and we're very passionate about sports. And I think that shows in the work that we do and the relationships that we are trying and still continue to develop in the industry.
Nice. What was one of the first memories for each of us that you kind of remember when working at Stanford?
Yeah, so similar to you guys, I think part of it was just at the beginning, that camaraderie through football setup. Those aren't exactly the most fun tasks. I know I think I was with Kris the first day doing light towers. So that's what I remember, going up 10, 15 feet. That was my first shift. But I just remember the football games. And
I don't think that was me.
Go ahead.
Might have been Fritz.
Oh, that wasn't you?
I think that was Fritz.
Oh,
No, Fritz
did
always
you ever,
been doing light towers.
did you do light towers last year at all? Like set up with them?
No, I helped took them down, but
Okay.
I was I think I was doing something else during setup.
Okay, sure. But yeah, like I said, like all the football setups and the football games were a lot of fun, even though they were grinds for sure. And
Yeah.
that's kind of what I remember.
Yeah. When you transition into the winter sports, also championship season for the fall sports, what were some of the key lessons? You got to work with Keith, our head of operations department, a lot because you wanted to work basketball. Like, describe how working with Keith was a big advantage for you.
I think it was a really big advantage because I think he's extremely knowledgeable in his position, and I think he wants like everyone else to be successful under him. So I tried to take a mentor type role because I'm still interested in facilities. And it was interesting because obviously I had worked at Gonzaga in the athletic department too as well, and just see the kind of the differences. I was very familiar with basketball and working college basketball, but it's different everywhere you go. That I've learned that, and I got a lot of different little tricks of the trade and tips from him, both intangible and tangible, that I will continue to remember moving forward.
Perfect. Yeah. I think Keith is aside from probably Tyler, I think he's one of the biggest role models within our department of managers.
Yeah.
He does have a lot of knowledge and he does have a lot of connections outside of Stanford, and that's one of the big things that we kind of lean on him for. Um, for I don't know, for the fall and winter, I know spring was kind of cut short due to COVID, but what were some of your favorite sports to work?
I think honestly for me, like football, there was a love hate. I think not being able to work football at the last school, I really enjoyed the game days, but not so much the setup. I really enjoyed the soccer games. I think that's one of the coolest stadiums that Stanford has, and obviously they have really good teams. And I was just impressed with the amount of support that they got at those games. That made that a lot more fun. And then I've always liked volleyball and basketball in Maples. I think there was a good atmosphere in there, and I know it's a little bit older of a gym, but I loved working in Maples too.
Nice, nice. So in the introduction, I said you grew up in Boston. Before you moved to California, how long did you live in Boston for?
So I was there. I was actually born in California. My family moved to the East Coast when I was 2, and then I moved back here when I was 12. So I was there for most of my childhood, 10 years.
Yeah. When it, in your experience, because I haven't lived on the East Coast, and Kris, I don't think you have either, right?
Nope.
What is the
West Coast, baby.
what is the what is the atmosphere like as a kid? Like, is it like competitiveness? Is it like, I don't want to sound super douchey, but is it like super cocky kids around? Like, what is the atmosphere when you were growing up?
I think it's different. Like I grew up in like a pretty like uh, middle to wealthy class neighborhood, and there was definitely some of that. You hear East Coast and South money. There was definitely money that you could acknowledge there. And yeah, there could be times when kids could be turn to be a little bit cocky, but I think that happens everywhere. But I think people there are definitely, like you said in the beginning, like California people are more laid back and have that kind of chill vibe. I think people on the East Coast are kind of more I don't know how to describe it, just a little bit more uptight, not necessarily in a bad way, but just kind of get stuff done, if that makes sense.
Now we're into related to sports. Is it kind of like, I mean, Boston Celtics, one of the best NBA organizations on the East Coast and probably of all time, uh,
Yeah.
and also the New England Patriots being one of the few actually teams to win 6 championships at the Super Bowl. Is it kind of due to that championship mindset that we are a little bit better than you at all aspects aside from sports?
Yeah, I think Boston just in general has a great tradition of sports, and I think when I was there, at least they were winning a lot, which was amazing. And then I coincidentally moved here, and the Giants started winning. But I think a lot of it when I was growing up, I grew up watching great coaches like Doc Rivers. Obviously, Bill Belichick is a legend, going to be in the Hall of Fame. So I think they brought that mindset that you talk about, which is really important in sports because if you don't have that instilled at the beginning, you're not going to go anywhere, in my opinion. So I think that's kind of instilled in Boston, and they're obviously super competitive most years and compete with all the New York teams, which only generates that competitive and winning spirit. So I think that's kind of ingrained in Boston, and I took some of that with me moving here.
Nice. And then you
Huh.
just explained. Oh, do you have a question, Kris?
No, I was going to talk to him about like his move. So he was through like what kind of championships? Like if you can remember, I can't remember exactly like what
Yeah,
happened during that time you were living in Boston. Like did they win a few championships? I feel like they did
yeah. So I'm not
when
gonna
you
I'm not gonna exactly remember the years, but I believe it was
but
the Red Sox won at
What
least two.
what year
Two.
did you, sorry. Did you,
Sorry, go ahead.
what year did you move out of Boston?
So I moved when I was, let's see, 12. I moved here in 2008.
Just before or just as the Red Sox won a championship, right?
Yeah, so they won in 2004 and 2007. And then the Bruins won, I believe, two cups when I was there. The Celtics won either two or three I believe it was two, with the big three, the first big three or big four: Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen. They always had huge games with Miami. Yeah, and then I think the Patriots won three as well. So all the major sports won a decent amount in that 10-year window, which was really cool to watch.
So out of
yeah.
the oh, go ahead, Kris.
No, I was about to ask the same question you were about to ask. What was your favorite championship watching?
I think I'm not positive if this is the first one, but the 2004 to me will always stick out. I'm a baseball guy at heart, so the 2004 World Championship, they were down 3-0, and they rattled off 3-0 to the New York Yankees, and that was the first time that a team had ever come back from a 3-0 deficit. So they won 8 games in a row, and I still remember to this day, being in my excited as hell in my living room and jumping up and down. And I think that's kind of where my love for sports kind of started. In those moments where like the team shows up, they they come up against all odds and get it done. So I think that was probably my favorite one.
Do you like a team within a team aspect, like when the team's energy corresponds to that of the front office, or the in this case for a college team? So like if they pop off within their season, do you like when that energy courses through the entire department?
Yeah, I think that's important, and I think that doesn't happen all the time. I think you see a lot of the times, like you said, with for example, like in the front, what you're seeing nowadays for the Clippers, like there's a lot of unrest between Doc Rivers and with other people in the organization. So I think they have all the talent in the world, and they probably should have made it to the Western Conference Finals, just for a real world example. And it went south somewhere. And a lot of the times you can probably point to management because it's their job to get the talent to perform. So I think it is important to have that going all the way through the entire organization.
Yeah, whenever like I'm in the front office, like either off of work, this is for Stanford, off of work, or when I'm in work, and there's like a big game on, like say for example, like this past December, our women's soccer made it all the way to the championships. I remember like there was also like a game that night for volleyball or something, and I don't think anyone was unglued to the TV watching the live stream or not watching I don't remember. I think it was round two of the volleyball game, and like every single person in the department showed up to those games, um, either because they wanted to or because they had to work, and everyone was excited. So I think like having that championship mindset within your players and within your team also should correspond within the department as well. And I totally agree with you, Kris. What do you think about that aspect within sports?
Well, you can't have both sides unhappy. Like you have to have both sides on the equal level. If not, you're not a championship level club, and that's what Zach said he grew up watching, and that's what was emanating out there. So if teams watching this, like that's something they have to focus on, to think of not just having a great coach, but also have a great front office staff to correlate to make sure that your gameplay is top notch and is championship level.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep.
And just to go on
Go ahead.
from that, I think that's kind of what you guys are talking about is like culture. And culture doesn't happen overnight. Like it happens through time. And I think, it's important to build that culture and build that mindset. But once you get to that point, I think it's very important not to stay complacent, but to keep emphasizing and working on ways to get better, whatever that may be. So,
I like it. I like it. So you said you moved from Boston back to California when you were 12.
yeah.
Uh, and then prior to that, you moved to Boston when you were 2. So not a lot of memories for yourself. But when you moved back to the Bay, and before you went into high school, what were some of the memories that you had, playing sports or just being around in California, being kind of the new kid on the block?
Yeah, so I remember it was funny. They actually had like a draft for all the kids that came from other towns in Little League. That's kind of my first memory that I had, and just being really nervous in tryouts. I was a huge baseball guy, and I loved basketball as well. But yeah, it was an adjustment coming to a new place. Obviously, I didn't want to leave my friends back east, and I had a lot of memories back there. But I think sports are different here in California as opposed to the East Coast. Like different sports are emphasized. Obviously, it's really cool that you can play baseball year round in California. I think that's a big advantage. And a lot of my memories were just me and my dad and a couple of my buddies just going to tournaments all over California during middle school and high school because I originally wanted to play college baseball. So that was a lot of my memories. Little League was a ton of fun here in town. They have a lot of support here in Sonoma, which is great. CYO basketball, getting all the kids involved. So those are kind of the main memories I had here growing up.
And now transitioning to high school, if I got this right, I kind of got this off your LinkedIn page. Not gonna lie. You went to Cardinal. You went to Cardinal Newman High School. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
There was one like I think it was like San Luis Obispo, and I was like, what the? That doesn't make any sense. But you went to Cardinal Newman. Who were some of the other teams that you played with or played against when you went to high school?
So they're in the North Bay League. So we played a bunch of other teams in Santa Rosa, mostly public schools. I went to public school throughout middle school, and then I did private in high school and college. But we played against teams like Maria Carrillo, Santa Rosa High, Montgomery, Ukiah, a bunch of teams up there in the North Bay, Windsor. So teams like that, and we were pretty successful. I mean, Newman has always had great baseball and great sports in general. So that was kind of the reason why I was originally drawn to it. And my dad already had worked up there, so I thought that was a good fit for me going up there.
No De La Salle opponents, or
We played them. They just weren't in our league, so like we had to wait until playoffs later in the playoffs to play them. And yeah, they're really good every year.
aside from baseball, what other sports did you play in high school, or was it just strictly baseball?
Played basketball 2 years, so I played freshman and JV basketball, I debated going out for the track team senior year, just on a limb, but that didn't happen. Mostly baseball.
Nice, nice.
Mhm.
So you graduate from Carnegie Newman and you go to one of probably the best basketball schools in the Pacific Northwest, Gonzaga University. What made you want to go to Gonzaga?
The funny thing was, I actually had a really good friend. I was a sophomore and he was a senior, and he would always he committed his junior year, and he kept telling me like, "Bro, you got to go up. You got to go look at it. You got to check it out." And I was like, it was on my list. I had a lot of just schools like St. Mary's, a lot of schools in the WCC that I was looking at, and I knew I didn't want to stay in California for college at all. I'm actually don't love the hot weather. I like the four seasons in the winter, so that's part of the reason why I went up to Spokane. But just going up there on my original visit, I thought it was absolutely gorgeous. I loved the campus. I loved the vibe of the students. I didn't want a huge university at all, and obviously the basketball was a plus. But looking back on it, I'm glad I made that decision, and it was a great place and helped me a lot moving forward.
Fun fact, I applied for Gonzaga University for my undergrad, did not get in.
It's gotten harder, bro. I think you have to have a 4.0 now to get in.
Oh, for real? Damn.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I think
I mean, because everybody knows about it, it's getting more
yeah,
popular because of the school
I'm
basketball.
probably gonna apply for my graduate program, hopefully.
Yeah, you should do it. I know a lot of people that have done it. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had how many internships did you have with Gonzaga, or just
So I had two different ones. I was just a assistant for women's and men's soccer, like an intern for them, and then I was an intern as well in the athletic department where I worked more with the basketball and the summer camps. So those twofold were about almost 2 years. My I took 5 years at Gonzaga, so my second senior year and my first.
nice?
Year.
We'll get into basketball real quick because I love talking about basketball. But for the men's and women's soccer position, did you guys have an indoor field or was it primarily outdoor?
No, it was all outdoor. Yeah, they didn't have anything indoor.
So like even through the snowy months, like you guys were still playing.
Yeah, it's crazy. They would usually end their season in end of October or early November. And I remember those last few games were just so brutal. Like there'd be snowbanks on the side, or it'd be snowing, and they had a grass field too, so they had great drainage. But I mean, it was just yeah. I remember the refs were saying, "Can we like postpone this or move the game?" Because it was absolutely freezing for those games. But and then I remember every year, like the last 2 or 3 years, I mean, we've been having these terrible problems with fires, and that would carry up there too. So a lot of the games would be canceled due to air quality and stuff like that. But it was a really pretty field right on the Spokane River. So those games were really fun to work too.
Damn, I didn't know that you guys had fire trouble as well. Um,
Yeah.
what what were some of like the preventions aside from probably just canceling the game? Like, what were some of the preventions to counteract environmental problems for the
Yeah.
team?
So my boss was always in contact with other athletic or ADs around the area. We had a lot of smaller colleges that they could go to, like Whitworth. Whereas JC, that was about 15, 20 minutes away. They had Spokane community colleges, and then they even considered going. I think Idaho was only about a 30-minute drive, so they considered going to other facilities to try and get the games in because we don't have anything indoor really necessarily for soccer.
Oh, that's a smart idea.
Yeah.
And also another fun fact: both my parents went to Whitworth, so that's kind of why and I was born
Really?
in Spokane,
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
so that's kind of why I have like a little love for Gonzaga because I really wanted to go there and transfer there. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. When it came to basketball, I mean, being in not the WCC, that's right, the West Coast
Yeah.
Conference.
West Coast Conference. Yeah.
L- I mean, for Gonzaga being such a powerhouse, do you think like they kind of should move out and maybe be in the Pac-12 or maybe go into the like add another team for the Pac-12?
Yeah, I actually have a little bit of insight. Like the year before I graduated, so 2018, my boss gave me some insight, and they were like this close to moving to the Mountain West. But the hiccup has always been the football because we don't have football. So that's a huge generator, both for in terms of money for tickets and as well for TV. So that's been the main hiccup that they've had. They've considered moving, but where they are right now, they're in a great place because obviously they win the conference every year, but they also get a higher portion of money due to the wins that they get and the revenue that comes with that. So it's kind of twofold where like it's great and all to win your league every year and kind of, although I will say the conference is getting a little bit better the last 2 years. They've been better statistically than the Pac-12. But yeah, some of those games are, snooze fest. Like Gonzaga will play Portland and they'll win by 40, 45 points. And the students will lead by halftime. So, I mean, there's part of you that wants to say, yeah, like move to a better conference, get that competition that will help them probably in that big tournament later. But it's a tough decision because I don't think they would ever bring football. They haven't had football since the 50s. So they're kind of in this catch-22 place where they probably could move, but I don't know if it would. It would help them in terms of seeding and probably getting more recognition and money. But I don't know if it would help them, move forward in the short term with their programs.
Do you think, or what do you think the schedule would be like if they did add football? Would it be a lot of away games to counteract that of the weather problem, or do you think they would try to build something like an enclosed stadium? Like, what are your thoughts if they were to add football?
Yeah, they have a lot of like. Actually, there are some great high schools in Spokane. There's about 7 of them, and one of the high schools just built a brand new outdoor stadium. So I don't think they would ever play at a high school, but that could be, I guess, an option. And then they have an arena that they play arena football in. But I just know specifically they don't have room right now for a football field at all on their campus.
I see.
So
I see.
So after you graduate Gonzaga, did you went straight to USF or did you take a little gap period?
I went straight into USF.
What was your process of picking USF as your graduate school?
I had done pretty well in college. I hadn't done the best, to be honest, in terms of my studies, but I was doing my 5th year and I was really focused. I had been kind of confused what I wanted to do going in. I started as communications and then I switched to sports journalism. And then from there, I finally eventually decided on sports management, my passion. I wish I would have been able to pick it sooner, but part of the reason for going straight into USF was because I felt like, if I had some good momentum going with my school and with my jobs and stuff. So I just decided, if I'm going to do it, USF is a great program. I've done all the research. I've done all the applications. So, I just decided it was the best decision for me. And I knew I wanted to get some more information because I had gotten a lot of Gonzaga, but I felt like I could get a lot more in terms of the ins and outs of the industry. So that's kind of was my process for picking USF.
What were some? You can ask.
Go ahead.
What were other programs that you were looking at, or was USF like kind of your direct line?
Yeah, USF and Gonzaga were my 2 main ones that I wanted to do, and then I had also looked at St. Mary's as well. But USF was always my number one. It was an easier application too.
I hear you on that. So you started in summer of 2019, correct?
Yes. So I graduated from undergrad in May, and then I started in July.
Okay. No summer break you wanted? You just
I just rolled right into it.
All right. So you've now been doing that for almost a year and a half now. What are some key things that you've learned through that whole process? I know that USF switched to online learning about halfway through your studies, but what are some key takeaways that you've learned from this program?
I think specifically, I went into the program, kind of tying more back into the last question. I wanted to. I've never been a extremely strong student, and I'm always a visual learner. So I was attracted to USF because of that internship portion that we have, where we have to. Most of the program is internship based. So I had just finished my internship with Gonzaga, and I wanted to get a lot more experience, specifically in the college realm. So what I learned from USF is that USF is a great tool and resource for a lot of students, I feel, in the Bay Area, and they have a lot of respect in the industry. So I think it's going to be a great tool, and has been a great way for me to be able to meet a lot of professionals in the industry. And to get into some of these organizations that at first I thought might be a reach. And I've learned just some basic things like, when you're at an internship, to work hard, to be that guy that shows that you can accomplish tasks, and some more broad stuff about economics of the sports industry. And it's obviously been challenging right now to kind of transition into this whole COVID world. But I think even some of the stuff that we've learned from our professors about how to stay busy and stay active, and I would say use that LinkedIn as a tool. I still use that. I still call people in the industry to get advice. I'm still in contact with my boss at Gonzaga, who left a big imprint on me. So I think what I've learned is just to always stay hungry, and that opportunity will always come, I think.
All right, well, moving on to our next little thing. You just mentioned about how USF is all about the internships, trying to get yourself out there, get that work experience. So you started, we mentioned this earlier in the podcast, with Stanford in August of 2019, right when football season was coming along. How did you come finding Stanford? Because we talked about you being from Sonoma, being about an hour and a half drive away from Stanford. I'm just kind of surprised you picked that route to go down there instead of going to like a closer school that's an easier commute for you.
Yeah, I had originally applied to work at the Raceway, but that didn't work out. Sonoma Raceway is about 25 minutes out, but they only have events during the summer, so that wasn't an avenue for me. And I currently work at a golf course, and I had experience in that before in Sonoma, but there's not a ton of real opportunities. I could have maybe worked at Sonoma State, but just specifically with Stanford, I had heard good things about their program and about the EM position before. And I had got a really good sense of what it would be like through my first interview with Ian Valentine, who was a great guy. And I had always done facilities and felt very comfortable with facilities and enjoyed that. So that was part of the decision why I chose Stanford, because it was a facilities and event manager role. And I think Stanford is one of the best athletic departments in the country. So just to get a chance to work for a school like that is really amazing. I know, it is a really long commute, and there were some times where I was like punching my steering wheel on 19th Avenue. But I think looking back on it, it'll all be worth it, and I really enjoyed my time.
Okay.
For the USF program, like outside of Gonzaga, what internships or other, not really particular like part-time positions, like what internships have you like applied for or are kind of being accepted by,
Like sports related or just anything?
Probably in general, if you have like some sports related ones, then yeah, but in general, like what other internships have you applied for it during your USF program?
So yeah, I've applied for many different. Actually, during COVID, I've done a lot of different. Tried to do a lot of different writing, sports writing pieces, because I love journalism. I still love writing, so I've done a lot of those pieces. I've stayed busy, like I said, with the podcast. I have a podcast with two other guys where we focus on baseball, so I've done that. I did an internship at USF in the marketing department with the Fog Mob, so trying to learn some stuff on the video boards and fan engagement and those pieces. And then I was also able to work the WCC basketball tournament in Las Vegas, literally the week before COVID hit. So that was kind of scary. My flight got canceled on that Tuesday, and flights were being canceled left and right. So I thought I was going to be stuck in Vegas. But that was a really fun experience. I was there for 5 days. We were working 10-hour days, but that was, we got to learn a lot of different stuff about the arenas and the arena setup for championships, and met a lot of great people through that. And then I was going to work for the Giants this past season in guest services, but that fell through. But moving forward, I'm going to keep looking for either facilities positions or marketing, sports marketing.
Is that what you're trying to focus on now, like leading?
Yeah, either facilities or sports marketing are my two kind of interests right now, either in the MLB or the PGA. And I would also
PGA?
PGA, and I would also still consider working for a college.
Oh, why the PGA?
Oh, why the PGA? Is that what you said? I've gotten a lot more interested in golf. I know a lot of people have during the pandemic, because it's one thing that you can do that's safe. Gotten a lot better at golf. And I've worked, I don't know, it's kind of a dumb rule, but I just think there's a lot of different like opportunities, and golf is like a sport that's ascending right now. and there could be a lot of cool opportunities with that too. So that's kind of why.
And you said you worked at a golf course. Are you still currently working there now, or?
Yeah, so I work at Sonoma Golf Course. I worked there now for the past 3 weeks, and I worked there previously in high school and summers during college.
You give me a tea time?
Yeah, I can get you a tea time for sure.
I come up next
I'll
week.
hit you up.
Can you give me a tea time?
I can get you a tea time.
So let's move on and transition to our next topic. Obviously, you said that you were from Boston, but you also live in California right now. What are some of your favorite teams that you support in each league?
Are you a Boston fan or a Bay Area fan? Big
Right.
question.
Hey, be careful on how you answer this.
It depends. It depends on the sport, boys.
Okay.
So, like,
Okay, so we'll go down the line. First off, NBA.
NBA would be the Celtics,
Okay.
and then Warriors number 2.
Okay. Now the NFL.
Okay.
Patriots 1, Niners 2.
No Oakland.
No love for Oakland.
Yeah, I could root for the Raiders on occasion.
But no, not Oakland. Las Vegas.
Las Vegas. Sorry.
Sorry, Las Vegas.
I don't know if you guys seen that stadium. It's absolutely
Nice.
insane.
It's super nice.
The Death Star.
I was supposed to
Yeah,
take
the
a tour there.
The Death Star.
Oh yeah, where you're supposed to go to the draft, right?
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, all access. But
True. For the
Raiders are good this
NHL.
year.
Oh, sorry. What?
I said the Raiders are good this year. They beat
Oh
the
yeah,
Chiefs.
they are. Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Favorite team for the NHL?
or are you a big fan of hockey?
Not a huge fan of hockey. My favorite. This is a little bit of front running, but I didn't like hockey until a couple of years ago. But I'm gonna go with Vegas Golden Knights, my favorite hockey team.
All right.
I really love their
team.
goal flurry, and I think that like the stuff that they're doing with like, I don't know if you guys have watched the Golden Knights game, but I think they have a lot of cool like stuff before the game with all the hype and entertainment stuff that they have.
It's Vegas. Gotta go big or go home.
Show, yeah. And they've been good too. So
My my current professor, he has a colleague who is the marketer for the San Jose Sharks. He's also a big advocate for the San Jose Sharks and how they market. So if you want to talk to him, I would gladly send over his contact information to
awesome.
look into marketing. So the one that you like the most, the MLB.
Yep, it's funny. Giants.
No Boston?
Giants.
Oh,
Wow. That's actually no. Talking to you, it's not a big surprise for me. Like I knew you liked your Boston teams, but that baseball you picked the Giants because, as you said, you came to San Francisco or the Bay Area right around the time the Giants won 3 and 4 years.
Yeah,
3 and 5 years.
And that 2010 team was awesome. That was the team that I really loved watching. Lincecum, Matt Cain, all those guys. That's when it kind of turned for me for the Giants, for sure.
Yeah. So what are some other sports or some other individual players that you like to watch or just keep a little eye on?
Yeah.
So yeah, I keep an eye obviously on Tom Brady, Gronkowski. So I watch the Bucks a lot. They're doing all right this year. I'm just really worried. Like if Brady gets hit once, he's down for the rest of the year. I feel like. But yeah, I'll watch like I'm not a huge Kyrie Irving fan at all. I'm really glad they got Kemba Walker. But yeah, there's a lot of different players. I really like the move. I like Cam Newton to the Patriots. Unfortunately, he got COVID. He's feeling better now. My favorite baseball player growing up, and still, I know he just retired, but my favorite baseball player was always Hunter Pence. I played outfield, and I think the way he played the game was awesome. So yeah, those are some of the players that I still kind of follow. I'm not a huge LeBron guy, but I respect him.
Is there any other sports that you follow outside of the big 4?
I do follow Premier League soccer. So I watch.
Okay, what's your club out there?
Yeah, I'll let you this one over.
I like. It's gonna sound like a front runner again, but I like Liverpool.
I thought you were gonna say Manchester.
That'd be worse, right? Yeah, my favorite team is Liverpool. I still don't fully understand soccer. I hated it growing up because it involved running. But yeah, and the game. What's up?
Don't all sports do?
No, in baseball you can stay on the outfield.
That's right.
You can be like 260 and play baseball. But
Look at Pablo.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking about Prince Fielder, but yeah.
Him too.
But the soccer games are cool. I'm still trying to get the hang of it. Like the players are. What I think is like it's really cool because it's a global game and it's obviously the most popular world or sport in the world. And there's guys from everywhere that come to England to play because I think it's one of the best leagues. So that's kind of cool. But the games are at like 4 a.m. or something, so it's kind of hard to watch.
Yeah, it's not really good follow up here
Yeah.
in California, the West Coast, when games are being played
And there's no
early in the morning.
commercials during
Oh
soccer.
yeah, it's just one continuous stream. That's what I hate about watching soccer. So let's move on to some sports news. Start off with the NBA. NBA news: Boston was eliminated in the semis against the Miami Heat. What did you think of this current team's performance?
I was a little disappointed. Like looking back on it, I think Miami was an amazing team, and I think that they obviously did have a legitimate shot at beating the Celtics, but I think the Celtics should have won. I think they have the pieces right now. I know Gordon Hayward getting hurt didn't help them at all, but I think it's just time for Tatum. It's his third year. He's going to be an absolute star. Probably going to go to the Hall, even though I think he's that good of a player. I love Jaylen Brown out of Cal. I've always loved him. I think Kemba is a better point. Even though he didn't do well in the playoffs, I think Kemba is a better point guard for that system than Kyrie. And I love their coach, Brad Stevens. He's really smart. But yeah, it was too bad. I think they did really well. Obviously, making it to the semis is a great year, but was hoping for more.
In your opinion, who should they build around? Like, which player should they build around? Should they build around
Tatum.
Tatum? Okay, yeah, I agree with that.
Easy question.
Yeah, easy question. When it comes, I don't know how you can compare Kyrie and Kemba. I mean, there's really no comparison when it comes to it sometimes, but like, how would you compare skill? Okay, let's take it into this perspective. We'll separate between leadership and skill wise. For Kyrie and Kemba, how would you compare their skills to each other?
I mean, I think they both have similar handle. I think Kyrie has top 1 or 2 handle in the NBA. I think Kyrie is better around the basket finishing. I don't know if I'm not positive on Kemba's 3-point percentage compared to Kyrie. I think it's similar. But to your point, I would point mostly to the leadership. I would say talent wise, probably Kyrie right now is a little bit better than Kemba. But just for the Celtics specifically, I think it's better to have someone like Kemba because he's a better leader. And I think, obviously you hear a lot in the news and the media about Kyrie and the world is flat and all that kind of stuff. I just think I hope he turns it around because I like watching him. I like his game, but I don't know. The Nets got a lot on their plate with those 2 guys in the locker room.
Yeah. To kind of further our previous conversation about who to build around, what are some of the pieces that Boston is missing and in order to reach that extra level?
Yeah, I think I like their big guys. They got Tice, the guy from Germany, but I think they need if there was going to be anything, I think they need another either 4 or 5, so a post player. I'd prefer them to get a center. I like Enes Kanter, but he's not really a starter at this point in his career. He's more of a guy off the bench. So I would get a center that could score. I know they had Al Horford, and I'm glad they got rid of that contract. Yeah, I'd look for a big body that can score. That's what I would do.
So the draft is coming up in about a month, I want to say. I don't exactly remember which pick Boston has, but who do you think they possibly would go for? I'm not sure if you pay attention to NCAA basketball or like people are going.
Like a quick thing, like not really for the Celtics because he wouldn't be around. I don't know the high numbers necessarily, but a guy like Wiseman, I know he'll be top 5 probably, and I think the Warriors are the team that should get Wiseman.
Yep.
But someone like him, if you can find something like that later in the round, I would go with the center.
One more question: do you think Taco Fall should come out of the G League and finally be on the main roster?
Yeah.
Okay.
Taco time.
All right, so moving on to your favorite sport. We're going to talk about a little bit of MLB. So the Red Sox finished dead last in the division in this shortened season. and you got to see two of your rivals like competing it out, the Yankees and Rays. What do you thought of your division this year, and the club you root for?
I think the AL East is always one of the hardest divisions in baseball. The Yankees are always going to be there because, in my opinion, they buy their players. That's fine. I guess Boston does that too, but a little salty there. But I think Boston saw the writing on the wall. They fired Dombrowski, their general manager, and they have a lot of guys that are older. I kind of compared this similar in my podcast to the Giants in terms of some of the contracts that they have. Terrible in terms of like guys with 4 or 5 years left and they're already in their 30s. So I think the Red Sox are in this place right now where they were in that win now mode 2 years ago, and now they're at a place right now where some of those guys aren't producing. And I know it was a shortened season, but they need, I would say, 3 starting pitchers, and they need to continue to develop the farm system. But I think it's going to be a few years before they compete in the AL East, because the Yankees are amazing right now. They got, 1 through 9 up their lineup. I know they lost this year, and they haven't done that well recently in the playoffs. But they got guys that can absolutely mash the ball. And I'm happy for the Rays. I don't have anything against the Rays. I think they're a great run organization, and they always have pitching, which wins in the postseason.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to the West Coast National League. Your team is the Giants. So the Giants, they just missed the playoffs this season. What do you saw from them?
The Giants, you asked about? Sorry, I couldn't hear that.
Yeah.
Just about their season in general?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So going into it, I was obviously really upset, like a lot of fans, about Bruce Bochy. And that's obviously a Hall of Fame manager that's tough to replace. So going into it, I did not like the hire of Gabe Kapler. I have a little personal story. I was at a Giants-Phillies game, I guess 2 years ago, and we were sitting behind Phillies fans who were complaining about Gabe Kapler, who the Phillies had just hired maybe a month ago. So I kind of got some insight about, like, I understand the analytics are starting to take over a lot of different sports, but just me having that baseball background, I think feel is really important in athletics. And, I know Gabe Kapler played in the game, but I think analytics can kind of take over too much in certain situations. So and I think a lot of people had that opinion with me at the beginning, but and there were some games where his biggest knock is managing the bullpen, and he struggled with that at the beginning. I know they have a lot of young guys, but I was pleasantly surprised with the job that he did, and I think a lot of the players that they have, which a lot of them weren't there last year, did really well. It was fun to see Joey Bart out there, one of our best prospects, playing catcher. So yeah, I think in general, I didn't expect them to win very much, and they're about 500. It was too bad they just missed the playoffs, but I think overall good year for the Giants.
All right. Moving on to a trade that happened back in the offseason. Mookie Betts traded from the Red Sox to, which was your AL team, your Boston area, to your Giants' arch rivals, the LA Dodgers, and now seeing the Dodgers compete for a chance for the World Series with him being that quote unquote leader. What do you think of that trade? Do you think it was a good trade Boston made? What do you think of Mookie Betts now playing for the Dodgers?
It's a struggle because, like I said, I think the Red Sox main prerogative and objective should be to skin that payroll and get guys that are unproven, younger guys on the roster. But it's tough when you're talking about. I believe he's a top 3 player, top 5 player in all of baseball, and he was obviously paid heavily. 13 years, I think, was the contract, something like $500 million or something. So I'm against the trade because I think he's a top 5 talent, and I was really upset to see him go. He's really is a 5-tool player, but I understand why they made the move because they didn't think that they would be competing necessarily. They didn't want to pay him all that money.
All right, so now let's move on to a little playoff talks. Where we talked about earlier, we have the Rays and Astros now going to compete in the Game 7, and Atlanta and the Dodgers are facing off with Atlanta being up 3-1. Who are your picks to see in the World Series, and who you think is going to win it all?
I was really hoping that it would be the Rays and the Braves, and that's kind of what I'm sticking with. I know it's going to be tough now. I think the Astros I believe they tied it today. So I want the Rays to win it all, but I would not mind the Braves winning it either. I think the Braves have been knocking on the door. Same with the Rays for a while now. It'd be terrible for the Dodgers to collapse like this again when they have all this talent and they're expected to win. And I think anybody outside the Houston area would love to see the Astros lose. So, this year I'm going to say Rays. Rays beat the Braves in, let's go 6 games.
Okay. So now let's move on to NFL. We'll talk about your favorite team, the New England Patriots. Let's just start back in the offseason. You guys just lost Tom Brady. What was your reaction at that time?
I was shocked like everyone else. I mean, the golden boy for the Patriots. Everybody seemed to love him. Everybody still loves him in Boston. But yeah, like everyone else, I was absolutely shocked, disappointed. But as you keep going, you understand that sports truly is a business, and things can change at any time. I was upset, but I understand. He talks about it now. Just that he felt like it was time to go. So I totally understand that and where he comes from. And the place he went to right now, I mean, they have an amazing offense. They have a great O-line. He's got tons of weapons down there. He gets to live in Florida, 300 plus days of sun. So it's not shocking, but back then it was definitely shocking. But just to segue I kind of picked that rumor like a while back about Cam going to the Patriots, but I wasn't fully on board about it, like going into it, because I didn't think he would fit the system or the regimented way that the Patriots are. But I think he's done a great job, and I'm really happy he's on the team.
What we talked about Cam just a little bit ago. What do you think of his play up to him being on the COVID-19 list?
Yeah, I think I was pleasantly surprised. I think he's really learned the system well, and I've heard from a lot of different people that he's earned a ton of respect in the room, and especially from Bill and from other players, that he stays late. Really learned the playbook really well. And from looking at afar, I always respected Cam's game, but I necessarily, I mean, growing up, I watched all Patriots games, so I'm more of that old school guy with football, where I like more of the pocket passers. The guys that are back there and just sling the ball 350 yards. But watching Cam, like, it's cool. He's excellent in the pocket. He's able to move around and find open receivers and different checkpoints and stuff. But I'm just still nervous about him and his health, like, because that's been a concern in the past. And I think he's done a little bit better job this year of trying to protect himself. But just hoping he stays healthy. And if he keeps playing as well as he is, maybe he'll re-sign.
So we talked about some of the NFL teams coming down with COVID. The Patriots were one of them, where they had to reschedule games or postpone the game for a future week. What do you think of the NFL right now, like going forward, if another team breaks out, like a Tennessee Titans or the New England Patriots? Do you have an idea, like for yourself, like do you have a plan, like you could pitch to the NFL?
Yeah, the only thing, I mean, the other alternative, I guess, besides like putting the season on hold would be, although I think it would be a lot more difficult. Like what I was going to say is a bubble type situation, but I think that would be a lot more difficult as compared to like the NBA. Just in the fact that there's a lot more players in general and a lot more staff. I think you could try and do something where there's like maybe one stadium open in each division, and that's kind of where they play the games. But I don't know if it would work logistically with like the TV rights and stuff. So to be perfectly clear, not exactly sure on a plan. I don't know if you guys have thought about it at all, but I think it's definitely more difficult to do a bubble type situation for the NFL.
Yeah, it's something we talked about.
Yeah.
We talked about having them go to Texas and
Mhm.
how many, only 2 teams there? But just
Yeah.
how many other like high school, like big high school stadiums there are. I mean,
Yeah.
and they really could roam around in Texas and live in Texas for that time. But it was never really an option for them.
And we also talked about pushing back the playoffs, so we can include all these missed games line.
Yeah.
So this question is for.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Keep talking.
Oh, I just think there'll be a lot of extra bye weeks this year. Maybe each team gets 2 weeks this year, and I think just the season will go on, past February, obviously.
Yeah, this season, this whole year, sports mainly has been changing up with all the new practices that have to be made for health reasons. But we have a big thing in the NFL. They have to they calling it reimagine the Pro Bowl this season, but it's more of just canceling the Pro Bowl game. I want to take both you and Micah's opinion about this. What do you guys think of the Pro Bowl kind of just changing to like they're just announcing rosters and trying to do other little stuff and not having a game this year?
I mean, I guess I can jump in. I think it's fine. Like, I think it's good for COVID reasons, and I think they need to do something with a lot of different All-Star games to try and get some more like energy and hype around it. I think it was cool what they did in the NBA where they let they kind of let the fans or they had the captains and they let them kind of choose the teams. Because when you watch the Pro Bowl, it's just like nobody's tackling anyone, and it's just like kind of a good time. So for the NFL specifically, I think that's fun this year.
Yeah, I think it's fine as well. Ironically, how many years that they've had the Pro Bowl here in Hawaii? I've only been to one.
Yeah.
I, I mean, to your point also, Zach, that they really don't try during the Pro Bowl. I mean, at that point, you might as well just start playing Madden and start drafting that way, just to kind of have a little spark within the game. But yeah, I'm kind of fine with them canceling the Pro Bowl because just for COVID reasons, if it's that.
Yeah, and baseball it's good too because the winner of that game, I believe, gets home field. Like if it's NL or AL,
Yeah.
that's like add some incentive, to maybe generate more incentive for the players.
What was that head shake, Chris?
No, if you guys talking about the seating for the Super Bowl, it's done by regular season wins and losses.
Oh no, I was just talking about MLB. My bad.
Oh, okay. I thought we were talking about the NFL.
Oh, yeah,
My bad.
you're good.
Last set of news. Couple of things that have come up this past week. Majority of the Power 5 schools favor breaking away to form own division within the NCAA. Surveys, some surveys show. So basically, a lot of the teams within the Power 5 that either aren't playing or have COVID or don't have COVID or whatever the reason is, they want to make and have their own division. What do you think of these different football teams' logics of kind of going around the NCAA or kind of going around the Power 5 conference and making their own division?
I think it's really interesting. I don't know if it'll ever like take shape and move forward because I think there's a lot of power still within being tied to a conference in terms of rights, like TV deals and all that kind of stuff. But I think it would be really interesting and add some leverage for those colleges that want to do that. I haven't done a ton of research on that, but I know that the NCAA does take a lot of money and revenue from those schools being a part of that conference. I can understand the reasoning behind that.
Chris, any thoughts?
Honestly, I don't think it's gonna happen. We already have all these conferences scheduled. They already have about 10 to 12 teams in each conference. So scheduling games, scheduling all these flights, as these are schools mostly, not professional teams as we see NFL, NBA. They already have deep pockets that is primarily funded for that operation, while schools have to worry about several different other sports, universities, the students in general, like the education. So they have already a lot of play. So having just one big conference is probably not going to happen at least in our lifetimes.
The University of Florida football team had contracted COVID. They also canceled practice this week. No one is practicing. I just looked it up recently. No one is practicing, and the game against LSU is up in the air still because more players on the team are getting COVID. That includes also 2 assistant coaches testing positive for COVID. Just from their track just from their track record in this past couple of months and how much they really don't care about COVID, or I'm just talking about the state of Florida. Um,
Hmm.
did you think this was like a long thing coming? Like, if you don't really care about it or don't look after yourself, that it would pop up, or is it just the wrong place, wrong time?
I think it's a little bit of both. Like, obviously, we still don't know the full extent of the virus. I know we're supposed to listen to the scientists, and it's still very important to do. But I think, to a certain extent, like I said just previously, we don't know the full extent of how it's spread still, and the different ways that we can get it. I know, masks are emphasized and 6 feet distance, but I think to your point, I think some of it is a little bit of randomness, and I think it's different in each like geological location. So like obviously it could be fine in certain states across the country, and then you hear a lot about Florida and how bad it is down there. So um, I think you can try and blame the players to a certain extent if they're not being safe, but they're college students too, and we all are well aware of what happens, at college, and you want to socialize, and it's that part of your life. So I think it's a little bit of both, in my opinion.
And before today, I looked up and he tested negative today for coronavirus. But Coach Nick Saban tested positive about 2 days ago. What were your initial reactions after he had confirmed?
I'm sorry, but before we move on to Nick Saban, I just want to point out that Florida wanted to bring in a full crowd to the stadium prior to them all getting tested positive against LSU to bring in that noise. And I just kind of see it's kind of ironic that their games now may be canceled because all the players are getting COVID.
Yeah, they're fucking idiots. I mean, you,
Full
they're.
capacity? Are you sure? Are you sure, dude? That's crazy.
I mean, either way.
That's what players want. The players said they wanted to have a full crowd against LSU.
I mean, it's not really their decision.
Yeah, it's not. So yeah, about Nick Saban, what were your initial reactions before when he said he had COVID-19?
I was really surprised. I I understand to a certain extent that things might be a little different in terms of the lengths people take down there, certain steps that they do to protect themselves. But yeah, I was really surprised. I wonder. Do you guys know if anyone else on Alabama has tested positive?
I haven't seen anything.
I haven't seen
I
anything
haven't
either.
seen
So
anything.
it's weird, kind of that the coach got it, but none of the players. To me,
It might
but
be
I
a
heard that there's
source.
a chance to coach this Saturday.
He might. Well, it's not entirely clear, but he might.
Yeah, but I also saw on that same day I saw Ronaldo tested positive. So a lot of the big soccer players, yeah, a lot of the big soccer players are testing positive too, which makes sense because they're doing, international duty for their countries.
Yeah, I mean, it really is unpredictable. Just who is able or who contracts the virus and who's not. It's just. I mean, I think it's just outside source, obviously, for anyone that contracts the virus. It doesn't have to really be, flying or whatever, traveling or whatever. I think it's just if you're outside and you're not doing your best to socially distance and you're blatantly doing it, then obviously you have something coming for you. But if it's like if it's on accident, then it's on accident.
Yeah.
Um, as we transition to our last topic, I like to have our guests rank a set of different professional athletes. So since you grew up in Boston, I have the top 15 professional athletes listed by Bleacher Report, not my list. Um,
Mhm.
so let's start with the top number 15 and go down all the way to number 1.
Yeah, so I'm not, I would say hockey is my least favorite out of the four major sports. So I know Bobby Orr is an absolute legend in the hockey realm, so I'd have to go with him at 15. And then going down the list a little bit, I would have to go with Bob Cousy next. Absolute great Celtic. I would take him number 2. And then let's
Wait.
see.
Is it 15 or 14?
Sorry, this is 14. I
Okay.
apologize.
14.
Yeah, going down. My bad. And then let's see. God, this is a really good list. I'm gonna go Robert Parrish next. Just an older player, so I'm not as familiar, but I know he was amazing as well in those early Celtics teams. Um, Wow, you guys made this tough on me. I'm gonna go Roger Clemens just because. I mean, he was an amazing pitcher. He's in the Hall, but he did go to the Yankees, so that's a knock on him for sure. Let's see, going down, John Havlicek. He's going to be next. Another great Celtic. Loved his game.
Now we're in the top 10.
10. Let's see here. Jim Rice is number 10.
Okay.
I believe he was a former pitcher. God. I love Paul Pierce. I love that man. He's not a great analyst. He's very biased.
Okay.
But I'll go Paul Pierce next.
Okay.
Number 8.
Number
8. Let's go Carlton Fisk.
Carlton Fisk. 8.
Carlton Fisk, number 8.
Number 7.
It's getting tough, boys. Larry Bird, number 7.
Wow.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Wow.
I know. I'm sorry.
The top 5 is going to be the most disrespectful list, I think. Number 6.
Let's reverse those, actually. Can we reverse what I just did with Kevin McHale? So flip those two.
Kevin
Okay,
McHale,
so
6?
Kevin McHale 7, and then
Kevin McHale,
Larry
7. Okay.
6.
Then Larry Bird 6.
All right, here's the
Wow,
5.
he's not even the top 5.
Wow.
Okay.
I'm going to go Pedro 5.
Okay, Pedro Martinez.
Pedro
I
5.
watched the man pitch. He was amazing.
Great pitch for Boston.
Yes, he was there for both those championships.
Number 4.
Oh man, you're gonna make me talk against Tom Brady here. Okay, let's do Carl Yastrzemski next.
Okay.
I loved watching.
Yastrzemski.
I've watched all the highlights of him. He has tons of statues around Fenway Park, and his
And now you can see his grandson.
Super cool. I love that kid.
Number 3.
Wow, holy shit. All right.
You got some good names here.
This is so Ted Williams, 3.
Wow, I actually thought he was going to be. Okay.
Ted Williams, 3.
Okay.
Tom Brady.
No, I'm not so surprised. Tom Brady, number
Tom Brady, number 2. Bill Russell, number 1.
Okay. I was like.
Okay, that was a little surprising for me.
Well, not really. I mean.
Bill Russell is absolutely so well respected in Boston. Like,
I thought he was Tom Brady because that's
honestly.
He's
was watching.
Oh my god.
Tom Brady when he was living out there. That was the guy which brought championships for New England.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So to kind of go over your list, Bobby Orr, number 15. Number 14 is Bob Cousy. That was kind of a little bit of a surprise. 13, Robert Parrish. 12, Roger Clemens. 11, John Havlicek. Number 10, Jim Rice. Number 9, Paul Pierce. Not surprised. Number 8, Carlton Fisk. Not this one. Kevin McHale, number 7. This one really surprised me when you selected him at 7. I was like, wow, he's not even the top.
I was thinking about that for a second. Yeah.
Larry Bird, number 6. Number 5, Pedro Martinez. 4, Carlton Yastrzemski. 3, Ted Williams. 2, Tom Brady. And number 1, Mr. Boston himself, Bill Russell. I think that's a pretty good list. I wasn't surprised towards the end.
Yeah.
Just that Larry Bird really threw me off, honestly.
The top 2, I'm very confident in, at least.
Oh, yeah, I am too. Well, thank you, Zach. We went over a lot of things about you, about different sports that we like to cover. Is there anything else you want to say to our fans about this podcast?
Just keep supporting that podcast. If you want, you can drop the link, like you said, into my podcast. I think that's been really fun to do for everybody. And I had a lot of fun, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, guys, don't forget to subscribe. Click the bell notification right next to the subscribe button. Like and share this video. Comment down below different articles you want us to talk about. And also share this with people that love sports and also people that just love to listen to other people talk. With that being said, I'm Micah, that's Kris, and thank you, Zach, for being on this podcast today. And until next time, see you later.